Hey, what is up, nerds, geeks, and collectors alike? Today we are taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series number 100 Deluxe class Bumblebee for the upcoming Transformers The Rise of the Beast. Let's get the elephant out of the room. As you can see, the box is completely destroyed. It arrived like this, but thankfully the figure is alright. As you can see right there, there's Bumblebee. Let me just set him aside. Let's take a look at the packaging. And here we have the front all crushed up on the Transformers Rise of the Beast. As you can see, 100 Bumblebee. And yeah, this is the plastic free packaging. And at the side here we have an image of Bumblebee, again with the plastic free packaging. At the back here we have the obligatory product shots, and from the back it looks like the packaging is in perfect condition. And here at the side, number 100 Studio Series Bumblebee Deluxe class at the bottom right here. And at the top here we have Transformers The Rise of the Beast, and at the bottom just a legal mumbo jumbo and with no UPC. Now, opening this thing, this is how I open my Studio Series figures, because that way I can put them in the box and they'd look mint without tampering with the tape. Now, pulling everything out, here we have the diorama, and here we have the twist ties, the illegal stuff, and of course the instruction manual. And here is a look at the instructions, but we're just gonna set it aside for now. Here we have the cover that actually holds the figure, and that's pretty nice because now they don't punch holes in the diorama like they did with the early plastic free. At the side we have some damage there. Kind of bummed out, even though I don't really use them. It would have been nice to have that option for the diorama, though not that big of a deal again. And here we have the backdrop where it is kind of a lava surface, and let's set that aside. And yeah, and let's get Bumblebee in there. And that's how he looks displayed with the backdrop. And I gotta say, I really like the choice of scenery here. I wonder how this will play out in the movie. And here we have Bumblebee out of packaging and taking a close look at the figure. On hand, this guy feels a lot different with the other Studio Series figures that I've held. And what I mean by that is he feels sturdier for some reason. The quality of the plastic is so much better compared to other Studio Series figures. And yes, he does lack some paint, especially here on the head. We all know, we've all seen that in the promotional images. And I know some of you would like to custom paint this with some silver or gun metal. But as is, to me, it doesn't bother me that much. And yeah. And of course, apart from the figure missing some paint, I am missing some paint here on his toes, on both toes actually. And I really hope that is a isolated case. And interesting thing to note here, these are now two separate pieces, where previous Studio Series figures would have a clear plastic and paint it, which would result in color mismatch. So I hope going forward they would adapt this more. All that's really missing with this figure is the paint, because the sculpt and the paint is great on this figure, but what I would really like to note is the plastic quality, where it doesn't give out the hollow and flimsy feel that most Studio Series figures would give off. Now, Bumblebee comes with one blaster and one wrist blade. Taking a closer look, the blaster is made in this yellow plastic and then painted on some gray. You can see the yellow protruding here on the tabs. What they should have done is just cast this in gray plastic and then transfer some of this paint onto the blade right here. So, why didn't Hasbro do this? I don't know, but moving on, as you can see here, the blaster does come with some detailing, and it really just bugs me that they painted this instead of casting it in gray plastic and leaving this one in complete yellow, making it look very cheap, because the details would have popped with some gray or gunmetal. And in order for Bumblebee to wield his weapons, just peg it like this, and you just tab the blade like this. Just make sure that it's tabbed in there firmly. And here we have Bumblebee dual wielding his weapons. And moving on to articulation, for the head, Bumblebee can do a complete 360. Yes, he is on a ball joint, but of course, like any transformer, he is hindered by the kibble. He can look up that far and look down that far, so a decent amount of range with the head. And his arms, you can bring out that far, and you can do a complete 360, but again, it is hindered by the kibble, so you might have to do some negotiating with the kibble. But you get the idea since it is a ball joint. He has a elbow swivel right here, and he can do a complete 360, which is pretty neat. He has a 90-degree bend at the elbow, but no articulation with his hands whatsoever. With the torso, he only has this waist swivel. As you can see, it can do a complete 360, but once more, it is hindered by the kibble. Like most Transformers figures, their articulation is hindered by their own kibble. He has a thigh swivel right there. As you can see, he can kick that far up, and he can move his feet that far back. And yes, even with the kibble, you can move his feet that far back without protruding, which is pretty cool. He can do the splits fairly well. And again, the aforementioned swivel, as you can see right there. He has a 90-degree bend at the knee, which is pretty tight actually. And here we have some pivot, but unfortunately no up or down movement, just a pivot. A lot of range with the pivot, mainly because it is part of the transformation, but we'll take it. And that's about it for Bumblebee's articulation. Now for the scale, let me just bring out the measuring tape. And as you can see here, Bumblebee stands just a little above 4.5 inches, which is pretty interesting because here we have Transformers Studio Series Movie 1 Bumblebee, which I think is a little below 5 inches. And here we have Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Bumblebee. And side to side, all of these figures, you notice that Rise of the Beast is actually yellow, while all of the previous Bumblebees are orange. And interestingly enough, this deluxe class Bumblebee is taller, just a smidge taller than the Bumblebee movie Bumblebee. I say that it's interesting because going forward with the Studio Series lines, figures get smaller and smaller, so it's just fun to see that figures aren't getting smaller and smaller. I genuinely expected that this would either be the same height or even smaller, so I'm really surprised that this Rise of the Beast Bumblebee is actually taller than his predecessor. So let's move on to the transformation. And here we have Bumblebee in his modified all-terrain 1970s second phase Chevrolet Camaro alt mode, which I absolutely love because it really fits the character. Bumblebee is a scout, therefore his alt mode should be all-terrain because he will be scouting uncharted territories. Therefore Bumblebee's modifications are logical, practical, and justified. Not to mention it gives off that safari vibe to it, which makes him look cool beside the Maximals. And here's something I want to bring up again. And as you can see here, the colors now match with the door because it is a separate piece of plastic instead of it being clear plastic with yellow painted over it. Like here on the hood, which bums me out because this is the only color mismatch throughout the entire figure. As you can see, it is all consistent except for this one part because it is clear plastic with yellow painted over it. We were so close, we were at the verge of greatness, but you know you can't have it all. Moving forward, I do hope that Hasbro will eventually perfect this. And here I just want to note at the back, it kind of reminds me of High Octane Bumblebee, which is a pretty cool nod, if that is actually a nod, maybe just some artistic choice of the director. And here, for the life of me, I cannot figure out where the gun is supposed to go. So I just configure it this way. And yes, it does hold the gun, but it kind of protrudes, but it does level with the hands. Therefore, it doesn't really hinder the rolling of the wheels. As you can see, all wheels are in perfectly working condition with the accessories at the bottom. Now for scale, here we have The Rise of the Beast Movie 1 and Bumblebee movie. And as you can see here, he is a lot longer than the Bumblebee movie. I think they are the same width and they are the same height. And here we have movie 1. Again, he is a lot longer. And I think again they are the same width. And for a more accurate measurement from the grill to the back, he is 5 inches long. He is 2 inches wide, just a little below 2 inches. And again, he is a little below 2 inches tall. So to summarize my thoughts with Transformers Studio Series number 100, Transformers The Rise of the Beast Deluxe Class Bumblebee, in my personal experience, it retains the awesome level of sculpt and engineering that Studio Series has been producing. But the one thing I will thoroughly note is the plastic quality. On hand, you actually feel that this guy is a lot sturdier than its Studio Series predecessors. It really feels like I'm holding a figure from a previous toy line prior to Age of Extinction. I love the robot mode, I definitely love the alt mode, but again, all that's missing is the paint. I wish Hasbro wouldn't cheap out on us in terms of the paint, because some silver, some gray, and gunmetal here makes the sculpted details pop and not make the figure look cheap. Apart from that, it's a really good figure. So that's about it. Till next time, see ya.